All right, let's get this show kicked off. Welcome, everybody, to this special edition of Bushsavvy. This is actually technically the second episode of Bushsavvy, but I'm going to be doing things a little bit differently here this week. I'm going to be flying solo this week, not actually going to have a guest on this episode, mostly due to the fact that so far in Alaska, it has been pretty well an unbelievable sheep season and an unbelievable moose season to kick things off. We are here in early September, and as you guys know, early September is prime time up there in Alaska. And so a lot of my guests that I want to get on here first and foremost are out in the mountains doing what they should be doing. And somehow, I haven't been able to figure out how, I am not. I am stuck down here in the Midwest right now recording podcast episodes instead of playing around in the Brooks Range. And since I'm not roaming the Brooks Range this year, I decided to do something a little different for this episode. I wanted to actually go ahead and host a special episode specifically centered around the fact that this year is 2024, is an election year. And before everybody starts moaning and groaning and, oh, here we go again, I'm not going to talk about what you guys think I'm going to talk about. I'm not going to talk about any candidates. I'm not going to run through any of that stuff. But what I am going to talk about is the fact that my way of life as a hunter and the way of life for many other passionate hunters across the country is once again on the ballot come this November. And so this is going to be probably a relatively short but sweet episode. And I am titling this episode Ballot Box Biology, because that's what we're going to spend the majority of our time talking about. So Ballot Box Biology is here, it is real, and hunting is on the ballot. So without further ado, let's kick off the second episode, Ballot Box Biology. Whether you're hunting, fishing, or camping, or just enjoying the great outdoors, you need gear that can keep up. That's why I trust Grizzly, built tough for every adventure. With unmatched durability and performance, Grizzly products are perfect for your next trip into the wild. Plus, they're made right here in the USA, and they come with a lifetime warranty. So why settle for anything less? Visit grizzlycoolers.com. Grizzly Coolers, forge your own trail. Are you looking to elevate your outdoor adventure more? Well, then you've got to check out Mountain Ops supplements. Whether you're hunting, hiking, or hitting the gym, Mountain Ops has you covered with top-notch performance-driven products. Their supplements are designed to enhance your endurance, strength, and recovery, keeping you at your peak no matter the challenge. Personally, I've felt the difference. I've got more energy, I've got better focus, and quicker recovery times. So why wait? Head on over to mountainops.com and use the code Keefer for 20% off your order. Mountain Ops. Conquer more. So let's get right into it. Let's start with what the hell is ballot box biology to begin with. For those of you that may not know, ballot box biology is nothing necessarily new, but it's been running rampant here for the last number of election cycles across the country. So what exactly is it? Well, ballot box biology is when people take biological decision making and they put it up for popular vote. Okay, it's a tremendous threat to hunters across the country. And as a hunting community, we've actually really struggled to get out in front of this kind of ballot box biology mindset. We've struggled to get out and tell the true story of hunting and fishing to the mainstream public. And so the majority of what people are being fed, especially this time of year, is only a one-sided story. Ballot box biology has been on a tear across this country lately. It's been on a tear for a while now, and it's not showing any signs of slowing down. And so let's talk a little bit about how ballot box biology works. It's basically a bunch of false narratives that are put together to incite fear, sow disgust, and obviously evoke emotion across the general public, in particular as it pertains to hunting. Oftentimes, a lot of these groups that are trying to put forth these narratives, they masquerade around kind of as organizations that care. Maybe they care about certain species, or maybe they care about certain ideals with wildlife. But they mask around as organizations that care in some way, shape, or form. And you can almost always tell who they are just by their name and their name alone. That and their lack of true benefit to the wildlife that they actually claim to care about. By far, and I mean by far, hunters, through our self-imposed tax funding mechanism of Pittman-Robertson, provide the vast majority of financial support for conservation and for wildlife management. So what the hell does that mean? Well, that means that we as hunters self-impose taxes on ourselves, on the equipment that we buy, on the ammunition and the firearms and all of the things that we buy in sporting goods in order to be able to hunt and fish. We impose taxes upon ourselves so that we can then take those taxes and divert those dollars back into wildlife management and conservation efforts. And so the majority of our money, literally our money, goes towards ensuring wildlife for generations to come. That's a fact. So when you start looking at some of these organizations that in name may sound good, if you look at where they're spending their money, it couldn't be more of a different story. It's propaganda, it's well-funded, it's highly organized, it's pre-planned, and it seeks to remove the management of wildlife and also the management of wildlife habitat. It seeks to remove that out of the hands of trained biologists and place it into the hands of a largely ill-informed general public, aka lied to general public. And so in order to advance the agenda overall, and let's be honest, of banning hunting across the board, from these efforts, all roads lead to banning hunting in the long term. And so that in a nutshell is ballot box biology. And so if you're not familiar with it as a hunter, I'm making a plea here right now, and I know there's a lot of other organizations and a lot of other hunters like us that are out there doing this, making a plea to educate yourself. Go out there and do the research. Look into these initiatives. Look into these proposals. Look into this stuff and try to find out and identify what the true intentions are behind it. Because come November, I can promise you there's an awful lot at stake for us as hunters and for the way of life ultimately that I choose to lead. So that is ballot box biology in a nutshell. When it's all on the line, the only ammunition I can count on is Winchester. For unmatched reliability and trusted performance, whether I'm on the range or in the field, Winchester delivers the precision that I can rely on. That's why I trust the Big Red W. Winchester Ammunition, the American legend. Check out Winchester Ammunition at winchester.com. If you're looking for top-notch precision in your optics, check out Leupold, where clarity meets craftsmanship. And let's not forget, Leupold has the greatest warranty that you will never use. Anyone can offer you a lifetime warranty, but guaranteeing performance, that takes some serious dedication and craftsmanship. Leupold optics are tested under the harshest conditions so that you can use them under the harshest conditions. Guaranteed performance when it matters most. Be relentless with Leupold optics. Check out Leupold optics at leupold.com. So next, let's talk a little bit about what's at stake here and what's really going on kind of behind the scenes. We as hunters have been too busy really going out there and doing all the good work that we do, especially from the conservation aspect. We've been out there doing the good work, and we've been too busy to realize that we're actually getting our asses handed to us when it comes to anti-hunting groups and special interest groups and the media that loves to fan the flames about what hunting actually is, and also about what sound wildlife management actually is, and who should be responsible for that. The stories that are out there and that are floating around, I've heard some that are just, it's preposterous what some of these stories paint us as hunters out to be, and it's insane to me. But nonetheless, a lot of these groups are well-funded, and they're spreading these lies and they're spreading these messages, coast to coast, all in an effort to get rid of, the sport that we grew up with and the sport that we love. And more importantly than that, they're looking to get rid of what is sound wildlife management. And so, these false narratives, they've been painted around hunting. They're really, like I said, some of them are preposterous, but that really shouldn't surprise any of us, I think. The life that I lead as a hunter and a conservationist, or huntervationist as I like to call it, has been flat out demonized in a lot of ways. I'd even venture to say that a lot of these groups have kind of slipped into the hunting community almost somewhat like a Trojan horse. Trying to draw purposeful distinctions and use identity politics within hunting to really pit hunters against one another when it comes to some of these ideas and some of these concepts that they have. And so when you look at that, in certain areas, they're actually doing a pretty effective job to a certain degree of pitting hunters against one another. And so if you don't believe me, just think about these identities within hunting for a second. You're a trophy hunter, quote unquote, trophy hunter, or you're a field to fork guy, quote unquote. Hunters take some of this stuff and they kind of wield it around like a sword in battle. But when we fall for this shit, all we end up doing is cutting ourselves, right? We give ourselves self-inflicted wounds that cut deeper and deeper every single time. And so, here's another example for you. And this is another pretty simple example, but a lot of times, what you'll hear out there is, somebody go down the road of, well, I harvested my elk. Or you have somebody who harvests an elk, you have somebody who kills an elk, right? The harvester versus the killer, these languaging traps that hunters fall into are nothing more than a sad attempt to make someone feel better about the fact that we take the life of an animal. That's what we do. And as hunters, a lot of times we're trying to make people feel better about that, and so we try to use language that might be, somewhat softened. I'm going to read a quote here. I think, David Draper, who is an editor over at Peterson's Magazine, I think he said it best when he said, and I quote, "I do understand why some people prefer to use that particular word when it comes to the taking of an animal's life. It's whitewash. A way to make a difficult act more palatable and in a politically correct way to talk about that act without offending others. But like most PC terms, the use of the word harvest is less than honest at best. At worst, it's apologizing for an honest and legal act that doesn't require absolution." That's probably my favorite part of that whole thing. At worst, by softening what it is that we do, it's apologizing for an honest and legal act that doesn't require absolution. A lot of these efforts and these languaging tactics are brought on by anti-hunting groups or by special interest groups, and they're kind of like mind ninjas. They drop them into the hunting community, they drop them into the world, and they kind of create chaos within. They're doing a really good job at it. And, I want to make sure that we're out there and we're all being mindful of what it is that we do as hunters and why we do it, and we need to spread that right message. In the hunting community in particular, we're constantly seeing, some of these polls that say, the vast majority of Americans support hunting as a, appropriate wildlife management tool. I don't know that that's necessarily true. If you truly believe that the vast majority of America has a positive or receptive position to hunting, maybe we need to start rethinking that as hunters. I would argue that the vast majority of America is generally ignorant to what hunting is, and I don't say ignorant in a derogatory way. I'm saying ignorant as if just not familiar with what hunting actually is and the wildlife management practices and conservation practices that come with it. And the stories that they're getting fed and the lies that they're being told have no boundaries. And so the narrative that's been created there around trophy hunting in particular is designed to play to people's emotions. It's designed to paint us in a bad light. The anti-hunting groups and special interests know exactly how to pull those heartstrings and to play to those emotions. And media organizations know how to fan that flame. And that's ultimately what they're using to exploit hunting time and time again. And none of it is rooted in truth. And I guess that's the part that I take issue with, is none of it is actually rooted in truth. The majority of it is a blatant myth. And we need to do a better job as a hunting community, in my opinion, of getting out there and in front of more of what would be considered the mainstream general public in order to share our story about why we do what we do. I want to talk a little bit about a quote that JFK actually once said. And I think this is a really important quote. He once said that the great enemy of truth, and this is a quote, "The great enemy of truth is very often not the lie, deliberate, contrived, and dishonest, but the myth, persistent, persuasive, and unrealistic." That's a pretty powerful quote. And I'm going to read it again. The great enemy of truth is very often not the lie, deliberate, contrived, and dishonest, but the myth, persistent, persuasive, and unrealistic. The myth can't continue. Under the visionary leadership of founder Johnny Morris, Bass Pro Shops and Cabela's is leading North America's largest conservation movement. Together with their partners in conservation, they're positively shaping the future of the outdoors through donations, grant making, and advocacy. The 501c3 Outdoor Fund raises funds to support conservation efforts by activating more than 200 million passionate sportsmen and women, rounding up their purchases in Bass Pro Shops and Cabela's stores and online. Visit your local Bass Pro Shops or Cabela's today and round up for conservation. So lastly, I'd like to also give a quick shout out to some other great brands that make what I do possible. Matthews Archery, Tracker Off-Road, Winchester Firearms, and Bush Light. So let's talk about some of these initiatives, proposals, and some of the stuff that's out there right now. There's plenty of measures that are going to be on the ballot this year all across the country. But the one I want to talk about in this episode is Colorado's Initiative 91. This thing is getting a ton of news right now, a ton of attention, and rightfully so. I think this is a perfect example and a very important example of the kind of thing that goes on behind the scenes. Nefarious efforts, I'll call it. Like all of these naked attempts to ultimately ban hunting, Initiative 91, in my opinion, is a lie. Just starting with the name, right? Let's look at the name. The Wildlife Protection and Conservation Act. Now, I'm a brand builder, and I have been a brand builder for the last 20 years. And I can tell you firsthand that this is basically a classic perception is reality name, right? But don't be fooled. It's an absolute 100% smokescreen, just like it always is. These are languaging things that these groups take, and essentially what they're doing is they try to hide some dishonest intentions behind agreeable sounding words and phrases. Colorado's Initiative 91 is called the Wildlife Protection and Conservation Act, and it could not be further from what that title actually is. A more accurate depiction of what 91 is, and I went ahead and kind of wrote this out, a more accurate depiction of 91 would be something like this. The anti-hunting world uses trophy hunting as a disguise to win at the ballot box in order to perfect the playbook so that they can set precedent and run this playbook across the rest of the country. That's exactly what 91 is and what 91 is designed to do. And so let's not just talk about it. What is Initiative 91? Well, I took a good, hard, long look at it. Okay, so this should be the latest version of 91. This language should be the latest, at least the latest one that I could find. And so if there is another one out there that I'm unaware of, I'd love somebody to send it, but this should be the latest one. And so let's start off with Section 1, okay? So Section 1 starts and says, in Colorado Revised Statutes, the voters of Colorado find and declare that any trophy hunting of mountain lions, bobcats, or lynx is inhumane, serves no socially acceptable or ecologically beneficial purpose, and fails to further public safety. There is a ton packed into that opening sentence. The voters of Colorado find and declare that any trophy hunting of mountain lions, bobcats, or lynx is inhumane, serves no socially acceptable or ecologically beneficial purpose, and fails to further public safety. I bet you Colorado Wildlife and Parks would have something to say about that ecologically beneficial purpose part. Anybody that knows mountain lions, I mean, they are an absolutely incredible animal. They are an apex predator to the max. As a matter of fact, they're one of, if not the top apex predator in my mind that we have here in North America. Their ability to kill is absolutely unrivaled, in my opinion. And they do it, and they do it well. And so the management practices that are put into place, when you look at mountain lion hunting in Colorado and you look at when it started and it became regulated and it became treated as a wildlife management tool, the population of mountain lions has actually increased by the thousands. Now, I don't have the exact numbers in front of me, but from the days when those numbers were dwindling until where we sit today, the number of mountain lions has increased in Colorado by the thousands. And so just the narrative of like, you're going to wipe these animals off the face of the earth as a hunter is completely false. This is what they seek to ultimately destroy hunters with, is this trophy hunting mentality or trophy hunting mindset, right? So sentence 2, they go on to start to define trophy hunting now. Trophy hunting is practiced primarily for the display of an animal's head, fur, or other body parts, rather than for utilization of the meat. And so not only do they attack this trophy hunting mentality up front, but they also attack the ecologically beneficial purpose right up front, right out of the gate. They just simply through language, they say there's no merit to it. It doesn't work. There's no science behind it. And again, just these first 2 sentences are packed with inaccuracies. Next line. Moreover, it's almost always conducted by unsporting means. Now, almost always. It's fairly ambiguous. It's almost always conducted by unsporting means, including but not limited to using packs of dogs with electronic devices to pursue and entrap affected animals in places from which they cannot escape in order to achieve the kill. So it's almost always conducted inhumanely, I believe, is what they're trying to put forward in that language. Therefore, it is inappropriate and necessary to ban trophy hunting of mountain lions, bobcats, and lynx in Colorado. And so, because trophy hunting exists, because they don't believe that it's ecologically beneficial or socially acceptable, and that because people use means that they deem unethical, they think that nobody should be allowed to do it. That is that entire sentence in a nutshell, an entire paragraph in a nutshell. And they go on to start to give definitions, and the definition that I wanted to look for the most in this language was actually the trophy hunting part, because I want to see really in the minds of the people behind this, what do they deem as trophy hunting, okay? And so they get to that. So you go to section 2, you get down to C1, and they define trophy hunting and what it includes. What it does not include, okay? And so the call-outs that trophy hunting does not include are any specified act that is conducted in defense of human life, livestock, real or personal property, or motor vehicle accidents, okay? And then any act that was conducted by an authorized employee of Division of Wildlife and Parks, or the U.S. Department of Agriculture, or the accidental wounding or killing of a mountain lion, lynx, or bobcat by a motor vehicle, vessel, or train. So again, an accident. So those are the call-outs. Every other form of hunting for these animals, they're seeking to ban. And they're seeking to ban it under this mindset of trophy hunting. And therein lies the key. Because if people can effectively get this pushed through by using ballot box biology with the language of trophy hunting, then they're going to take this playbook and they're going to try to put it across all of the different states. And it's going to be a concerted effort to flat out ban and outlaw hunting under the guise of trophy hunting, period. If you notice those call-outs, they're very, very, very specific, and they're very specific for that reason, is there's only a few exceptions. They don't even call out hunting for meat anywhere in here. This thing can't possibly end up getting voted into legislation. There's just no possible way, in my mind. We have got to be more effective as hunters in telling that story. And so, in my mind, where does this all lead? So if you ask me, it all leads to a flat-out ban on hunting as a cornerstone of wildlife management altogether. Think about it. As humans right now, we serve as the biologists, we serve as the managers, the guards, the keepers, if you will, of North America's incredible wildlife and their habitats. And so through their habitats and through hunting, we have got the great responsibility of ensuring that our wildlife doesn't just exist here in North America for the future, but it thrives for generations and generations and generations to come. We aim for healthy populations that are in harmony with the predator-prey relationships. We aim for healthy populations as it pertains to the holding capacity of land and habitat, and so on. And so as such, we hold the power to set bag limits. We hold the power to impose restrictions. We hold the power to effectively keep population levels in check. But let's back up for a second and let's take a look at that whole predator-prey relationship thing. Because if you notice, a lot of these initiatives across the country focus on apex predators. And so doesn't it seem a little bit odd that the vast majority of these initiatives are all focused on placing an overabundance of apex predators into the wildlife habitat and into the ecosystem? And so why would that be, right? What does that mean? Well, if there's an overabundance of apex predators out there on the landscape, then what's to keep the story from turning into, humans act as wildlife managers, but now we have a bunch of apex predators running around out there, so why do we need hunters to manage wildlife in the first place? Maybe we don't. Let's ban hunting. That's where all of this can lead. Am I saying that that's where it's going? I don't know. I don't know that that's where it's going. But I find it highly suspicious that a lot of these measures focus on putting apex predators in an overabundance. And if you don't believe me, just go into certain states that have gone through this kind of thing. Go into Michigan, where I'm sitting right now, and roll through the UP and look at the reintroduction of wolves in the wolf population and what it's done to deer herds all across the Upper Peninsula. And you look at the results of that, and then you think down the line, man, if we start having an overabundance of these predators, never mind the increased interaction with humans and all the stuff that goes on there. Let's just talk about what's actually taken place so far. There's nothing to keep the conversation from going down that road. So in conclusion, I just wanted to run through kind of a special little episode here because of where we are in time and place. Right now, like I said, it's 2024. It's an election year. People's emotions are running high. There's a ton of stuff on the ballot all across the board that affect everybody's life, including this. And, I'm just here to tell everybody, listen, get out there, get yourself educated. That's all we ask. That's all I ask. Make sure that you're educated on this stuff. Make sure you're reading the language that's behind some of this. If you agree with it, great. Agree with it. If you don't agree with it, don't agree with it. But do the research. There's no excuse for not doing the research and trying to understand ultimately what the intent and the intended purpose is behind some of this stuff. So at the end of the day, ballot box biology is a bad thing. We have got trained professionals out there as scientists, as biologists, as ecologists, people that specialize in understanding how wildlife and humans live in harmony and how we put ourselves out there and manage these wildlife populations and the habitat in order to ensure the success of it, not just for the here and now, but for generations and generations and generations to come. I think we've got a compelling story to tell. I think we've got a conservation mind, and we want to ensure the future of wildlife for generations. That's where I think we're at. That's my personal opinion. I happen to disagree with a lot of the stuff that's on the ballot in terms of ballot box biology this year, but I encourage you to head out, do your research, and find out for yourself. Take your position and stand behind it. That's a wrap on this episode. Hopefully episode 3 we'll be back with some fun guests and some exciting stories from the backcountry of Alaska. Until then, answer the call.